On September 9th, 2001, 19 million British viewers sat down to watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. As usual, little did they know that this particular episode would go down in history. During the preliminary selection, the host asks 8 candidates to complete a simple task. Put words in the correct order to get the title of the book Agatha Christie. They all want to get rich, and almost all the contestants do the task correctly. But the fastest is 37-year-old British Army Major Charles Ingram. The most scandalous story of this show begins. Ingram sits down in the chair quite confidently, but his confidence does not last long. On many questions, he is very tired between options. Halfway to the million, he has only one clue out of 3 left, 50-50. But somehow, incredibly, Ingram answers question after question correctly, over and over again. By that point, the TV studio staff had long since noticed the oddity in Charles's behavior. But the show goes on. And so Ingram gets to the final question, the question that separates him from the coveted £1 million. The question is, what is the name of the number that consists of the digit 1 and 100 zeros? The $1 million question. At this point, Charles realizes that he doesn't know the right answer. The whole room is in nervous anticipation. The girl in red is Charles's wife. She wanted to help her husband, but she can't do it. Ingram goes through all the possible options he heard from everyone except one, Google. And he chooses this option. Ingram wins £1 million.
You just won £1 million!
In the early 2000s, the whole of Britain was obsessed with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. At that point, only 2 people had ever won $1 million, and Charles was the third. The problem was that his victory seemed too unlikely. It seemed like Charles was playing roulette on every question and was never entirely sure. His win seemed unbelievable, even too incredible. However, it can be explained very simply. Ingram deceived everyone. He is possibly the biggest scammer and fraudster in the history of television. As a result of the investigation, Charles will appear in court, but what was the fraud and how did he manage to pull it off? It's hard to believe, but in the early 2000s, there was a secret organization that, for a large percentage of the winnings, promised to get you a seat on the show. They also helped players by using the phone a friend lifeline. In the room where the player called their supposed friend, they gathered several people, professors, historians, basically specialists in all fields. They were supposed to find the answer quickly. Before this, Ingram had tried to get on the show twice, but failed the qualifying rounds. His wife and younger brother had also participated in the show before that, and tens of thousands, if not 1 million, hopefuls tried to make it to the hot seat. And this family definitely knew how to game the system and secure a spot in the studio. Charles's wife and brother each won £32,000. It seemed that reaching the final was the Ingram family's life's purpose, and so Charles began the game. The first few questions came to him quite easily. Ingram's younger brother is also in the studio. At some point, one of the employees notices that he is near the studio with a phone in his hands. According to the rules, it is forbidden to use a phone near the studio. After the first questions, Ingram begins to doubt more and more. He behaves strangely. For each question, he pronounces each version of the name by ear. Yes, this could be chalked up to the normal decision-making process, but now look at this segment.
The Aristotle Onassis.
As Ingram says, Aristotle Onassis, a cough is heard in the studio. Indeed, Aristotle Onassis was Jacqueline Kennedy's husband, and Ingram chooses that option. Then the cough is repeated over and over.
Sure, but the reason I think it's cricket is... Am I sure?
Who's coughing? Look, already at £4,000, the team of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire has a clear understanding that the guy will not go far. 2 tips are spent. Ingram looks very insecure by all indications, and relying on experience in past years, in this scenario his ceiling is 16, but a maximum of £32,000. Only a miracle will save Ingram.
Okay, Charles, we got...
God.
And this call is that very miracle, which means that the filming of the continuation of the show is postponed to the next day. Ingram has a few hours to think over a plan. He himself is clearly not up to it. And here we see another important character in this story. The host introduces the contestants who will be vying for a chance to take the chair in the next game, including this man. This is Tequin Whittock, a professor at the local university, a friend of Charles, and also a fan of the show. It is at this point that he joins Charles's scam. The show is just beginning. Remember that cough about asking Kennedy's husband?
I would have thought that it...
That's Tequin Whittock coughing. The most difficult question and test of the team of scammers was this one. Who in the 2000th released the album Born to Do It? Charles doubts and does not know the answer. He decides to use a hint, but it does not help him. He desperately waits for a signal from a friend, but there is silence in the hall. Whittock also does not know the answer. As you remember, Ingram's wife is also in the room, and a separate camera is pointed at her. Charles wants to answer A1, but at some point he changes his mind 180 degrees. And this is that moment. If you say you've never heard of Craig David, and a few seconds later Craig David answers, there's something wrong. The studio staff understands that something is wrong. They call the producer, but he orders the show to continue. Ingram will say several times during the show that he has never heard of some of the answer options, and a few seconds later he will choose them. The same thing happened with the final big question for £1 million. While Ingram is enjoying his victory, the producers nervously watch the recordings over and over again, counting every cough and comparing them with the answers. In total, the microphones recorded 192 coughs at that moment, many of which sounded almost simultaneously with the correct answers. After handing the check to Ingram, the producer left, holding onto the check for 80 days under a formal pretext. The next day, the producer called the police and then Charles Ingram. He told Ingram that after reviewing the recording, the game was not played entirely fairly and stated that these suspicions should be reported to the police. And until all the details were clarified, he couldn't send the check. Charles agreed. A year and a half later, all three were charged and all three were convicted. They did not plead guilty. It